All right, so we're back again for another year of what you need to know for Wyoming elk. This is going to be primarily for the non-residents and those that are interested in applying for elk for Wyoming for 2025. The application season's coming up, and it's going to run through the month of January, and it is going to close January 31st at midnight. So you've pretty much got a whole month to get this in. Probably best to do all your research beforehand, of course, instead of waiting until the last couple days to try to make a decision. But it'll run the month of January, and you have until the 31st of January at midnight to get your applications in. So when you apply for Wyoming, the biggest thing is it's online only. No paper applications, no mail-in, none of that stuff. Make sure you can get onto the website and get through that whole process. Give yourself plenty of time. Don't wait until 11:55. Just make sure you're able to get online, fill out your stuff, get it in with plenty of time. But online applications only. So when it comes to costs for applying for either a general elk or limited quota elk, just applying for non-resident elk in general, you're going to have the cost of the elk license itself plus a $15 application fee. And your elk license that you're applying for is in fact your non-resident, I guess, non-resident hunting license. That's they're one and the same. So no, you do not need to purchase a separate hunting license in order to apply. Some additional costs to that, every hunter and angler in Wyoming needs to buy a conservation stamp. And if you plan to hunt a unit, or if you apply for a limited quota unit that's within the feed ground boundaries, and you'll know this when you apply, and it's also in the regs, it will flag out which units this ties to. You're going to need an elk special management permit, and that's for the feed grounds and all that stuff. So that would be another additional cost. If you're applying for a limited quota tag that's not in one of those units, or a general tag, but you don't plan to hunt one of those units, you don't have to worry about that special management permit. But if you do, then you got to purchase it. And if you're unsure on what units those are, check out the regulations, and they'll tell you if that unit is within that boundary or not. So as far as cost of the license, so for those that know, you have a non-resident regular and you have a non-resident special. For those that don't really know, there's not much difference to that whatsoever except for the price range. In some cases, you might have better odds of drawing in special, some you don't. Some you might have better chances in the regular, and some you don't. So the price difference between your non-resident regular and your non-resident special is pretty significant. The regular price is a total, so your application fee and your non-resident regular elk license is $707. The cost for the non-resident special license is a total of $1,965. And that's including the $15 application fee for a total of almost $2,000. So if you've got the pennies to spend, in some cases, applying for the special might be a little better option. So here in a little bit, we'll talk a little bit more about the differences between the regular and the special licenses. But the biggest thing is the price difference. Big thing about Wyoming is if you are lucky enough to draw a non-resident elk license, then guess what? It's yours. There's no returns, there's no transfers, no turnbacks, no redos, unless there are some serious reasons why. It's pretty much your tag. So it's not one of those states where you want to apply for thinking that if you've got something else that comes up, we can just turn the tag back. You can't do that. You draw the tag, it's yours, so you better make some time and go hunting. So another question we get about Wyoming is how does the tag breakdown or the tag allocation work? The residents will get 84% of the total tags, and your non-residents get 16%. And what they'll do is they'll break that down even further. So of that 16% that the non-residents get, so pretty much the non-resident pool, of that non-resident pool, they split it up into two different pools, which are your regular and your special draw. So 60% of those tags are going to go into the non-resident regular draw, and 40% of those tags will go into the non-resident special draw. So of that 16, they go into a 60-40 split regular versus special. And back in the day, when they had the price difference a lot lower, a lot of people didn't like paying the extra money for the special draw. So in turn, what that did is that actually made the special draw had a lot better odds in case of drawing. And over the years, people got used to paying a little bit more money, and there wasn't really much benefit to the special draw anymore. It was pretty much the same odds across the board, except one cost more. So with this last price increase that they did this last year for 2024, you're starting to see a little bit more separation between the regular and the special, to where they increased the price quite a bit to the point where it's, I would say, arguably a little bit ridiculous. But you do see a little bit better odds in the special draw after last year than you do the regular. So there is some benefit again to the special now that they've hiked up the prices. So some more percentages on tag allocation. So you've got 16% total go to your non-residents. They're going to break that into 60-40. Now in each one of those pools, whether it's the regular or the special, you have 75% of those are for preference points. So if you've got 100 tags, 75 of those go to the preference point holders, 25% of those, or 25 tags, go strictly random. So in both draws, regular and special, they're going to break that into 75-25. So they'll go to preference points first. They'll start at the top, work their way down. Once the preference point percentage is gone, then the rest of the party are random for that last 25%. So Wyoming is considered a first choice state. And so basically what that means is they're going to look at everybody's first choice on the application before they move on to anybody's second choice. So the first choice really matters. In which case, if you do draw your first choice, then that's what's going to eat up all your points. Your points are only good for that first choice, not anything on the second choice. If you're unsuccessful in drawing your first choice, you do not get a preference point automatically. That's the biggest thing to remember. So in a lot of states, if you don't draw the first choice, you're automatically awarded a preference point. Wyoming doesn't do that anymore. If you're unsuccessful, you need to make sure later in the summer, after July, to go on during the preference point buying period and buy your preference point. So don't forget that. Some people have. And the reason being is if you miss two preference point periods in a row, 2 years in a row of not getting a preference point, then whatever points you currently have, you will lose. So they will take them from you. You don't want them to do that. The best way for you to lose your points is by drawing a tag. So if you don't apply, make sure you get on during the preference point buying period, buy your point. If you do apply and you don't draw, make sure you get on during the preference point buying period, buy your point. Don't lose your points. Another question we get on Wyoming is, how did the group applications work? So for the non-resident elk, you can have a maximum of 6 people in your party. And the best part about that is, in a lot of states, if there's not enough tags available to satisfy the size of the party or the number of people in your group, then they will completely toss out your application. And Wyoming doesn't do that, which is, in my opinion, I think that's awesome. So Wyoming will over-allocate to satisfy the party size. So if your party gets drawn, there's only 4 tags left, but you got 5 people in your party, well, guess what? All 5 are getting a tag and you're all going hunting. The way that the points are averaged in a group application is they're actually averaged out to the 4th decimal point. So they really get a good average in there. A lot of people, or a lot of states, round down. Wyoming does not do that. They take a straight average of all the points in your group. So it doesn't matter if somebody's got 2, somebody's got 6, they're going to take the average, go out to the 4th decimal, and that's the point total that you guys have going into the draw. So another question that we get all the time about Wyoming in particular is exactly how the wilderness works. If you're hunting in the wilderness, let's say you've got a general elk tag, but you want to hunt a unit that's in the wilderness, or if you've got a limited quota tag and it's primarily wilderness or all wilderness. Biggest thing with that is the only way as a non-resident that you can hunt the wilderness is if you are going with a guide or an outfitter or a resident guide. If you're using a resident guide, if you have a family member or a friend up there who is a resident of Wyoming, he or she then needs to go down to the local Fish and Game office and literally get a resident guide permit. And really all that is it pretty much ties you with the resident guide. You got to go get a permit for it, and you'll be good to go. So there's also a couple different types of wilderness. So the wilderness in Wyoming, in which case you would need an outfitter or a guide or a resident guide, is your Forest Service wilderness. If you're poking around on the maps, and probably you'll actually see this primarily in BLM grounds, you might see something that says Wilderness Study Area. So that Wilderness Study Area, you do not need an outfitter or a resident guide. So those are the two different classifications. One is Forest Service wilderness, and the other one is a wilderness study area. So only the Forest Service wilderness is where you need an outfitter or a resident in order for a non-resident to go kill the mighty wapiti. Okay, hunt types. We're going to talk a little bit about hunt types. A lot of people get confused about these, especially if you're new to the game when you're applying as a non-resident for Wyoming elk. You might hear different terms like type 1, type 9, type 4. They all mean something just a little bit different. The biggest thing to remember is the majority are rifle tags. So that's one thing people get mixed up all the time on, is when you're applying as a non-resident in Wyoming, you are actually applying for a rifle tag, except for one case, which we'll talk about. You're applying for a rifle tag, but then you have the opportunity to purchase an archery stamp for that rifle tag. So we'll get into the hunt types, and I'll explain those. So the first one is your type 1. That's bull elk or any elk firearm. That's a full priced tag. Your type 2 is the same thing as the type 1. So you'll have a unit 90 type 1, which is the whole unit of 90. Full price, that's a rifle tag for a bull elk or any elk. And if you see a 90 type 2, your type 2 tag, typically what that is the same thing as a type 1, but it's either a unit restriction or a date restriction on that unit. So it might be a portion of that unit, or it might just be certain season dates within that type 1 window. So if your type 1 is October 1st through the 30th, that type 2 might be the 15th through the 30th, and that might be the only change there is. It's still a full price bull tag, but there's going to be some sort of restriction on the unit or the time frame. And both of those, both the type 1 and type 2, like I said, you're drawing a rifle tag, but you can purchase archery stamps to hunt those if you would like. The only tag that you're actually going to apply for that is archery only is what's called a type 9 tag. You can see these in the standalone draw odds page for Wyoming, or you can use it on the insider filtering and find your type 9s. But that is a full price archery only elk tag. Your type 4 and your type 5 are full price cow-calf tags. One thing I want to point out about your type 4 and your type 5, because they are full price elk tags, you got to be real careful if you're not sure about this. If you've got 5 or 6 points that you've been building for 5 or 6 years for a bull tag, and you think, well, these cow tags are a lot easier to draw because they only take 1 point or no points for a lot of cases. If you put in for a full price cow-calf and you draw, you will lose your elk points, meaning the elk points that you've been building for a bull are going to go bye-bye because they are a full-priced elk tag. It's a cow-calf tag, but if you put in for a 4 or 5, don't be shocked if you have no more points left. Your type 6 and type 7 are your reduced price cow-calf tags, and these are not on a point system. If you put in for these, you will not lose points because there's no points involved, strictly random. So like I mentioned with the type 4, type 5 full price cow-calf tags, you will lose your points if you draw. The good thing is if you really want to hunt something, but you don't want to waste points or burn points, you can put in for that type 6 or type 7 tag because it doesn't take any points. So if you draw a cow-calf type 6 or 7, You still keep all your points. It's all random, and you can wait until July and purchase a preference point for going into the next year. So you don't lose any points. It's an all random draw, and you can still buy a preference point during the point period come July, and you don't miss a thing. Okay, so Type 1, Type 2s, Type 9s, those are all your limited quota tags. Let's talk about your general season tags. So for many, many years, it was a general non-resident elk license, and that was statewide. And as most of you know, that went bye-bye last year. So we are now broken into 3 different regions. You've got a western region, southern region, and an eastern region. And you still have a lot of general units within those regions, and you're still able to hunt any open unit, any open general unit in that region. So you're not tied to a specific unit like your limited quota tags are. So the general season is a draw tag for non-residents. And one thing to remember, whether you're putting in for limited quota or you're putting in for general, like I said, you still got 2 choices to make. That's non-resident regular or non-resident special. And depending on the draw odds for those will determine kind of which way you want to go there. I would highly suggest diving into the draw odds detail page and look over the 5-year trends for whichever one you want to apply for and kind of see how many points things are going to take. So for the general tags, your general elk licenses, it's a draw tag for non-residents, and that is over the counter for the residents. So you've got 3 regions to pick from. And the good thing is now you can dive into either your draw odds, standalone draw odds, or your insider filtering, and you can look at what the price increase really did to the elk licenses for regular and special from last year. Surprisingly, there wasn't that big of a jump. A couple regions had a little bit of a decrease in the special, which was kind of anticipated. But in all honesty, I thought there'd be a little bit more difference than what there was. Still kind of an even playing field, especially in the western region. But do yourself a favor, give yourself plenty of time. Hop into your standalone draw odds and look at the differences between regular and special. Like I said, if money's not really that big a deal, some of these, it's really worth looking into the special odds now that that price increase really did put quite a bit of a pillow on some of these hunts. Your general elk license, like I said, you got three regions to choose from. You've got a lot of ground that you can hunt. Any open unit that is a general unit in those regions is available to you. You can purchase an archery stamp. Once again, even if you put in for the general non-resident elk license, regular or special, you're drawing a rifle tag. And you'll see the rifle dates associated with that tag. Just like limited quota, you can purchase an archery stamp if you wanted to hunt the archery season for that. Dive into the regs, dive into goHUNT Insider, make sure you know what you're putting in for, what you're not. Make sure wherever you do decide to hunt, if you're within those elk feed ground boundaries, make sure you purchase that elk management stamp. All right, so just a reminder before we close this thing up, application is going to open up first part of January, and it'll run the month of January, and we'll close the 31st at midnight. That's Mountain Standard Time. So pay attention to that. In the meantime, make sure you dive in to your insider account. I would look at your standalone draw odds. I would look at draw trends. If you're putting in for limited quota units, I would definitely look at the draw trends over the last few years. Kind of see what's climbing, what's not. Look at the point creeps. If you're looking at your generals, you've got 3 to choose from now. I would look at the differences between your regular and special, and that might help determine whether you want one region over another. So you've got plenty of time to get your research in for this upcoming application deadline. Dive into your insider account, and if you've got any questions, feel free to shoot us an email, reach us at gohunt.com. We'll do what we can to help you guys out. If you're not an insider and you're just catching this video for the first time, there's no better time to sign up. We got all the tools right there at your fingertips. You can get on there and see what kind of hunts you're into, what's available to you, all the good stuff. So good luck to everybody, and have a great season.